There we go. Well, welcome, Rob. Rob, as I said before, internationally renowned, well-respected pastor. You're at Wooler Evangelical Church. Would you just tell us a little bit about Wooler Evangelical and the community it serves?
Yeah, thank you so much for listening to me. Really kind, really appreciate all your prayers and opportunity to share, really. So Wooler Evangelical Church, we're up in Northumberland, which is in the northeast of England. It's really right up on the border with Scotland, so we're just 20 minutes from Scotland. Rural area. Wooler itself, the town, has about 2,000 people in it. Our closest other towns would be Berwick or Alnwick. But to zoom back out from that, it'd be Newcastle to the south or Edinburgh to the north. So we're not too dissimilar culture-wise from the Scottish borders. We're in that kind of cultural area. So Wooler, the town, historically, yeah, plenty of agricultural stuff, but as many rural places, the agricultural workers have diminished, and it's just a real mixed employment, some light industry, fair amount of tourism, some farming and agriculture. So yeah, a mix. Maybe a half to a third would be retirees
Mhm.
in the town. So yeah, people from all over, inputters as they're sometimes referred to, those that have moved to the area to retire. Um, yeah, so that's a bit of a flavour of the town and the region. Northumberland itself is a county, about 320,000 people as a county. Um, Two FIEC churches, which is Fellowship of Independent Evangelical Churches, as far as I know, are currently in Northumberland. So that's 320,000 people, two FIEC churches, which puts the numbers at about 0.02% in evangelical churches. And even if you were generous and like trebled, quadrupled that, you're still only hitting not even 0.1%. So I think by any missional standards, that might qualify as unreached. Um, but yeah, so plenty of work to be done. Um, I'll stop there. Go on. I
Well,
could
tell us
keep going.
about the church as well. Tell us about
Brilliant.
yeah.
So, church, Wooler Evangelical Church is a church that was established as it came out of a URC, a United Reformed Church, about 30 years ago. I think they were standing firm for the gospel. They wanted to hold firm to the inerrancy of Scripture, and can't remember exact numbers. Maybe 30 or so folk came out of the URC church, established a new work, grew to around say 50 or 60 or so, and then over the last 30 years has kept going faithfully, kept plodding on. And I think that cohort has been aging as those years have gone by, and wonderfully faithful example of godliness. But time is time, and as Ecclesiastes teaches us, death does come, and so numbers are dwindling. So there's that, and yeah, that limits human resources with an average age of around 80, a membership of 25. But of those 25, six or seven are housebound. Um, yeah, one lady's 102. There's a lady that may well be meeting the Lord in glory in the next week or two, who's a wonderful encouragement seeing her dying well. I mean, yeah, wow, what an encouragement. But yeah, so that's the kind of the church as it stands. Myself and my wife, we've got five little boys. We've been here 2 years now. Yeah, they're great fun. They keep us occupied, and we're the only family in the church. So no other families yet as members, but a number that have dropped in, dropped out, kind of like a fringe that have come occasionally, not necessarily committed, but certainly interested and learning and growing, which that's been a joy and an encouragement, and certainly something that we're looking to work on as a church, looking to pass the gospel on to the next generation and to make disciples of all nations. That's something that's just a real heartbeat and a drive, I think, for that process of what I think is fair to say is sort of a re-energizing, rejuvenating, revitalizing work being done sort of in the church. So yeah, that's something that I think is kind of an ongoing thing that is happening as it stands. I hope that gives a bit of a flavour for church life up here.
Oh, that's brilliant, Rob. Thank you. And you yourself, how did you end up at Wooler? Was it always kind of on your heart to be in that part of the country, or did it kind of come out of the blue? How did you end up there?
Yeah, thanks. So I went to Durham University to study geography originally, and when I was there, got involved in a church in Durham, and then ended up doing a trainee scheme there for 3 years, and then worked as the student pastor and then the children and youth pastor. So I did about 10 years in Durham, which is also in the northeast of England. It's not that, it's maybe an hour and a half south from where I am now. So it basically gave me an exposure to that region of the country, which for many people that live well, south of York, they don't really know what exists up beyond Newcastle. It's just kind of this blank space. So I was made aware of it, the beauty of it, the needs of it. And so then when I went down to college, Bible college in London at Oak Hill, I was then looking at the jobs board there, and this one up in Wooler came up on the jobs list, and that immediately caught my eye. And that coincided with I'm sure lockdown helped it. Lockdown in London helped it, but a desire and a heartfelt passion for rural ministry. And so looked at that and thought, yeah, do you know what? That's somewhere where Rob and I could really see ourselves serving and enjoying that and loving that, and investigated from there. And yeah, just came up, visited, and just felt very much at home and a desire to help in any way possible. So yeah, moved up 2 years ago now. I think we've literally just completed 2 years.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. And I mean, you've already touched on this a little bit. What are some of the particular joys of pastoring Wooler, and what are some of the biggest challenges that you've found since being there? Either that church in particular, or just the whole nature of rural ministry.
Mm. Yeah, joys. There've been many bright spots, many joys. I think getting to see older saints plodding on faithfully, seeing their prayerfulness, seeing their love of the word, has been a, sort of a challenge and a joy in equal measure, where you kind of think, wow, yeah, they're serious about this, and so should I be. So that's been a real encouragement, and to see them keeping going, keeping wanting to serve and love. So that's been a joy, kind of being amongst older saints, and getting to see that firsthand. The privilege of walking with people in the valley of the shadow of death, I think, is something that, being at a student church, was something slightly remote from me, something I wasn't particularly involved in. And in a if you understand what I mean, in a strange way, it's a joy to be able to do that, though hard and sad in some senses as well. But so that's been a privilege. Other joys I think have been when trying to make friends, bring up faith, have discussions about Christianity. Like, the population of Wooler seem like, in some ways, almost desperate to have conversations. Like, it hasn't been hard to start conversations with people and to see where they're coming at. So that's been a real joy, being able to very quickly get onto matters of faith and spirituality and church. So that's been a joy, that God's been providing those opportunities, and that people do seem to be open for that and open for friendship. Um, yeah, we found so many people who are lovely and friendly, and yet they don't seem to have managed to work out how to make friends with each other. Um, but that's been a joy to be able to get to know people quickly, and that's been again a small town rural thing. I think relationships have been turbocharged because you see each other day in, day out. It's been a joy getting to know folk at the school gate. That's been, I think, in some ways easier than we thought it might have been. So that was a joy, and to get stuck into the community. Um, but with it, I think, yeah, has come challenges. I think if we go um, inside the church, I think challenges of just the nature of an older congregation, who sometimes I'm sort of saying, look, we need to talk about both a willingness and an ability. And the response is, well, we're definitely willing. And I'm like, yes, I know, and I love that, but are we able? And at what point do you say to someone, like, it's okay to stop. You're allowed to stop. And that's hard, I think, for folk to be able to sort of hang up. whatever they hang up, and stop doing things. So that's a challenge. I can see how, and firsthand, trying to sort of suggest different ways of doing things, altering things, changing things, without giving the impression that that which has been done before was bad or wrong. Those conversations are sometimes just more of a challenge, and trying to see it from their perspective. So that can be a challenge. Yeah, and sometimes just going slowly can be a challenge. Wanting to be patient and wanting to just walk at the right pace, and knowing sometimes when to say let's go, and sometimes when to say let's just go slow. So that's a challenge. In terms of the town as a whole, I think one of the challenges is that there are 5 churches in the town of 2,000 people,
Mm.
coming at it from different directions, from the United Reformed Church, from Church of England, from the Catholic Church, from a Brethren gathering. Um, yeah, that can be a bit of a challenge. And also explaining to those that are relatively unchurched why there are 5 churches and why we don't just all meet together. Um, Navigating some of those conversations, I think, can sometimes be a bit of a challenge. And to do that graciously, but clearly, that's a challenge. And another challenge, knowing when to say no, because there's so many opportunities to do so many things. I think it's a challenge to say no and to prioritize rightly. And I think that I'm still challenged by that, like the kind of the triage. Okay, there's 10 things that need done. I can only do 3. Which 3 do I do, and in what order do I do them? That's a challenge. So yeah, I don't know. That I'm sure there's many other things as well that I haven't mentioned, but I'll pause there. But thank you.
No, that's really helpful. Um, so I guess one of the joys, the encouragements, as we mentioned before, is you've got Matt and Rosie, God
Mm.
willing, joining you later this year. Or is it the start of next year? I don't know, whichever it may be. So what's the vision for that appointment? How do you think that's gonna help serve Wooler in particular and Northumbria as a whole? Just set us the vision for that. What are you guys hoping to get out of that?
Mm. Yeah, thank you. I mean, super excited. As many of you might know, I've known Matt since 2010, around then. I'm thinking something like that. Yeah. So I've known Matt and Rosie both for a long time. So good friends, and trusted gospel partners already, which is such a joy. And in a kind of a family centered way, just yeah, really thankful to God for another family to be part of the church family up here, to be alongside us, to do ministry together, to do partnership in the gospel. So that's something that we're really grateful for and thankful for. In terms of sort of vision of serving Wooler and serving the wider area, yeah, I think something that has already, I think, served Wooler well is that even having the conversation about having a church planting resident is bringing up all sorts of opportunities to say, well, why would we do that? Why would we have a church planting resident? Why would we plant churches? And why would someone come here to start with? And I think that's just hugely beneficial because it's just got the conversation on the table in such a way that we've then been able to talk about these things and to envision, and so I think that's been a helpful mindset perspective. It's forced me to think, pray, read widely, to help me, and then to help the congregation as well. I think in terms of serving the congregation, there's going to be huge blessings, just with me running around, trying to do this, that, and the other. And we have 2 services on a Sunday. That's our model. And there are limited numbers of hands that can help, physically help. So there's physical assistance, but there's also, preaching. I think the food that they're being fed will be improved. The quality of the food will be improved as there is kind of more opportunity for Matt to both preach and myself to preach. So a partnership there, which would be wonderful. But thinking more widely, I just think there's, as I've said, such a barren area up in the northeast of England, such a need for gospel witness, such a need for partnership and help with other small churches with, say, single pastors who would really appreciate help. And if if Matt can be that help at times to help the region, even whilst he's with us, that could be a huge blessing. Um, and then looking further down the road, the vision to either establish a new work from scratch or to revitalize an existing work. I just think that's hugely exciting for Northumberland, and wherever that might be, there's needs everywhere. But in doing that, I think envisaging that networking and connections that can start happening between pastors, between churches, and bringing a sense of outward looking, kingdom minded focus that wants to see the gospel go out, new works established, wherever that might be and however that might be. So that's a vision for that. I think for Matt himself, what I'd love to see is for these 3 years to be a real opportunity of growth, a time of sort of preparation for going out. So a chance to both read widely, deeply, to think on how to do these things, to build up networks, connections, to help it to be as healthy a plant as possible, or revitalization from the get-go. So to be able to have the time to do that from here, to use it as a stepping stone, as a launch pad, as well as then an ongoing partnership and relationship further from here. So there's loads of things in that, but I think just the blessings that God could well provide through this are just super exciting.
Yeah, it's so exciting. It's and I think it's great that it's going to be beneficial, hopefully, to two churches. And I think we certainly found that when we planted, there was a sort of, I think both churches benefited from that kind of, one church tries something, it works, the other church has a go. Yeah, I think it'll be a real blessing. Really excited for you guys. Obviously, Matt's just starting out, or not even yet starting out in rural ministry, and there might be someone watching either live now or later who's starting in that kind of a church. And there's loads of books out there, isn't there, for how to do church planting in, urban New York or whatever it may be. You're 2 years in, if you could go back to yourself 2 years ago, or if you were speaking to someone like Matt starting this year, is there anything that you'd say, kind of pearls of wisdom, maybe things that you got wrong that you've learned along the way? What would you have to say to someone who's new to this?
Yeah, thank you. I think just soaking up others' wisdom and reading as many of the books that are available out there. So Stephen Whitmer's Big Gospel, Small Places. I found the Small Town Summits material from Northeast America really helpful. Loads of great articles on there. I think David Pinkney, you're on the call, aren't you? And involved with some of that Small Town Summit stuff. That's been super helpful because again, it's coming at it from a rural small town perspective and addressing some of those specific difficulties and challenges that are to be faced and opportunities that there are. So I found the Small Town Summits material really, really helpful. Stephen Whitmer's work there really useful. Ronnie Griggs and Martin, I think, have written a small book again on pastoring in small town places. So materials like that, I think, would be my advice. And I think so much of that has helped me just feel like, the situations that I'm running into, the kind of the questions that I'm asking, people are, it's not just me. And there are answers out there and there is help to be found. And yeah, so I think reading that material widely has been helpful. I also think just, yeah, there's nothing that beats something like a face-to-face connection in a local area. So finding other pastors, and it does mean that, say from Wooler, um, uh, local pastors that can help aren't that close. So I might have to drive an hour to get together with someone, or at least half an hour to 45 minutes. But that's where I'd sort of say in rural ministry that just expect that, and that's fine. Just build that into the schedule, and that's super helpful and super encouraging. So yeah, I found just little and often meetups with others from a similar context has been massively helpful. And then yeah, some of those books out there, and I think that there's a growing body of materials, and if yeah, articles, there's plenty of them out there, and yeah, I mean there's the Raw Project blog as well, a few bits and bobs on there, like which is again just having that helpful kind of addition. So yeah, that'd be initial advice.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Um, and then also engaging with the community in Wooler, you said, there's kind of people are willing to chat, school gates. Is there anything you've done either as a church formally or informally that's just been very fruitful in building those relationships and getting to share the gospel with people so far?
Mm. Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, one of the things that I was encouraged to do through a podcast, book, something, can't remember where, but was, yeah, just to sort of throw yourself into connecting with, meeting with, talking to people in the community. So getting to really know a community, where the needs are, where the stresses and strains are. So I just kind of, yeah, jumped into being a governor of a school and being on the parish council and just things like that and being out and about. And I found that was really helpful to start building up those network of connections with people, meeting people. And as I said, the school gate, that's been a good place to be. And one thing that has been really encouraging is that as I was meeting with different people, dads and folks from around town, I was ending up having similar conversations with quite a few of them, to the point where I said to one or two of them, "Hey, would you be at all interested in getting together and having some kind of like faith discussion group one night of the week?" And I was kind of expecting a hesitancy and like, "Oh, I don't know about that." They jumped on it. They were like, "Yeah, I got nothing else to do. I'll be there." And then we got there, and I was thinking maybe we could do it fortnightly, and they were like, "Why not every week?" I was like, "Okay, fine, we'll do it every week." So they were the ones pushing me, and we were just chatting away. And eventually, when I kept saying, "Well, it comes back to working out who Jesus is, and we see it in the Bible," then one of them said, "Well, why don't we just read a bit of the Bible together then?" Okay,
Brilliant.
we can do that. So we read through Mark's Gospel, and that's been, wonderful answer to prayer. But people were hungry. That's why I was just sensing that hunger for these kind of conversations, and God was good at providing them. And some of them were just spending time with people, asking the questions that you're allowed to ask as a pastor, because you can kind of say, "I run a church. What do you think about church?" Like, it's just so simple, and people were actually really happy to talk about it. So we've got a men's discussion group that I run on a Thursday night, and we've now started going through the discipleship explored videos material, working through the book of Philippians. And then their spouses and partners got jealous and said, "Well, why can't we do anything?" So my wife Robin was like, "Well, I could run a discussion group for the ladies," and so they've started on a Tuesday. So they meet on a Tuesday, we meet on a Thursday, and that's been a huge encouragement and a way to meet people, talk to people, and that's really helped. I think as a church, in terms of event-based things, I think we're still working on that. What is useful to run, how to do that, how to engage people with things that they want to come to. Yeah, that's a work in progress. And I think the kind of the personal one-to-one discipleship has so far borne most fruit as far as I can see. Yeah. Oh, thanks. Question: am I bivocational? No. Amazingly and kindly, in God's providence, there is resources enough for me not to be bivocational, which really gives me that time to be able to spend with folk, go for coffees, be around and about, do some of these extra things like some governor stuff, some parish council stuff, which, yeah, bivocationally might end up being really squeezed out around the margins. So yeah, but we found the community seems to be open to conversation. It's just a matter of being out there and getting involved.
That's really amazing. That's really encouraging. So often we've just got to put our heads above the parapet, don't we? I was thinking recently, I mean, when I was at CU, there was a guy who said that the problem with CUs, with Christian unions at universities, if you're not familiar with it, is that you get all of the really enthusiastic for evangelism people, and you put them in a back room and get them to try and figure out how to get everyone else to do evangelism. And they're like, this is ridiculous. Let's just get these people doing evangelism. I think it can be a similar thing with pastors. It's like we spend all our time trying to get other people to do evangelism. And actually, we're so well placed to go and do that. And that's such an encouraging example, Rob. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure many of us are thinking, okay, yeah, how could I do that? And with the people who are open, that's so encouraging. Um, Going from encouragement to discouragement, sorry for the gear clunk there. Um, most of us face times of discouragement. I think we've just got to be honest about that spiritually. And I guess there's particular challenges of being isolated, of being in a smaller church where the fruit is slower. Um, what have you found personally has helped you when you've been spiritually discouraged, if that's happened so far?
Yeah, yeah, certainly times, yeah, of just, yeah, feeling low or discouraged. And I think the two things particularly that come to mind. One is, from my perspective, God's random kindness, where it seems to have been invariably the pattern where if I have a sleepless night or two, or something's really going around my mind and getting me down about something, somehow, and for no particular reason, I seem to just get like an email from a church member just drop into my inbox slightly randomly, being like, "Oh, hey, this was so encouraging, and thank you so much for that." Just a real, like, real pickup encouragement, seemingly out of the blue, at just the right time. And that I can only attribute that to God's random kindness. And so that has really helped me. And then knowing, sometimes going into moments of discouragement, thinking, I know the Lord can bring me through this and he will somehow. And right now, I don't see where it's going to come from, but so far, he's been so kind to me. I'll just wait for the next one. At the same time, as my second route to encouragement from discouragement, I think has been just getting on the phone and being in an isolated place, just getting on the phone to anyone, everyone in various places, friends in ministry, friends from college, friends nearby, friends completely in a different context. That I've found has just been so helpful, just to, and sometimes listen to me, just kind of talk it through, and either just say, "Yep, that's hard," um, or kind of say, you're basically doing the right thing, keep going," and that's been so encouraging. So yeah, just having people, as it were, on tap, having a range of people on tap that I know that I can pick up the phone to. And as I'm sure everyone here will already have, they'll have people in mind who they know are just, they have the gift of encouragement. And you can get on the phone to them and you'll walk away encouraged. And I've got, two or three people that I know for sure will do that. And that's a huge blessing, and has helped in times of discouragement.
Mm, that's really helpful. Um, Obviously, Rural Project's very young. I think people think we know what we're talking about, and we don't. We're just kind of like we think this is a good idea, and we think it'd be good to have a go. But constantly, as a group of churches, we need to be thinking about what would be most helpful to do for one another. Um, I don't know whether you've had any thoughts about things that would be helpful for us to do together. There's no auspices that's the Rural Project. This, it's us pastors of different churches trying to help each other be evangelistic, Bible preaching, gospel preaching churches in areas that might be more challenging or might be different from other churches. So, you got any thoughts about what would be helpful for us to do, or what has been helpful from your perspective?
Mm. I mean, some of it is slightly riding off the back of small town summits, learning from their wisdom as well, but just thinking regionally, because the Rural Project is rural across Scotland and England and Wales. Is there anyone in Wales? Don't know.
Yeah, I think there is a kind of there's a sort of a group that are doing stuff in Wales, but I think we get some of them coming across. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so across a big area, but then
Mm.
having that perhaps a sort of a regional sense of those that are part of the partnership, but in a regional area, could be really helpful. Sorry, my dog's just whining at me. I'm just going to let him out of the room.
This is a constant theme, isn't it? Dogs that are part of our live stream, so don't worry about
Yeah,
it. That's gonna be part. That's what one of our rural projects things.
get a dog. Yeah, he's helpful with evangelism. Yeah, just that sort of sense of regional togetherness, I think, can be helpful. Sharing specific quirks of rural regions around the country, as in Norfolk. will have its own sort of regional variations as opposed to Northumberland, as opposed to sort of the southwest and so on. So in that way, I think the face-to-face things, yeah, so helpful, and yeah, just learning from those both in that context and completely outside of your context. I think being helpful. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think I'd have much more other than to keep doing what the Raw Project is aiming to do. I just think it has been so helpful and so encouraging, and would like that to continue in whatever way it can.
Right. We're going to be going to a time of prayer in a second. Anything particularly we can pray? Obviously, we've got lots of general stuff, but anything particular that we can pray for you as an individual, as a family, and you as a church, before we go to pray?
Thank you. I think one thing just at the moment that's on my heart and mind is just in the wonderful busyness and chaos of life. I don't want to shortchange the flock with getting away with less quality of preaching and proclaiming the word. I want to make sure that I'm guarding my heart, my teaching, preaching of the word in a way that is really feeding them well. So just prayer for protecting that time and that love of bringing God's word to bear in helpful application. I think would be one thing particularly for myself. Please pray on for Matt and Rosie. Housing, moving, yeah, all of those things. I'm sure Matt and Rosie would be thoroughly appreciative of prayer for. As I said, there's a number in our congregation at the moment, as I'm sure there will be in all congregations, but going to be with the Lord in the not too distant future. So please just pray on for them to finish their race well, and for me to pastor them well to the end of their race. I think it'd be much appreciated. And yeah, just thinking, what if we have 30 in our church on a Sunday morning and there's 2,000 here? There's so many that aren't. There's so many that are lost and haven't heard or think they know and don't know. So just, yeah, praying for reaching Wooler, and then with Matt and Rosie, that outward looking, let's reach this. I mean, the dark skies is an area that's described as Northumberland, but dark souls and darkness is something that is spiritually true as well. So just that the light might be shone out into all of Northumberland, I think could be particular prayer points.
Thanks, Rob. That's really helpful. Thank you for doing this. I know I've had to do this kind of thing before, and you feel like you're speaking out of your ignorance rather than out of your knowledge. But we've definitely appreciated, and so often things that chime. So thank you so much for being willing to share, even though it does always feel a little bit awkward doing it. For those who joined later, just let me say, and also before the recording ends, the next one is going to be on September the 11th. 12 to 1, we're going to have Jim Day doing exactly the same thing for us. We've got our conference in the Highlands, 10 o'clock to 3:30 on the 28th of September. If you want to sign up for the next Zoom call, it's the rawproject.org/Zoom. If you want to sign up for the conference, it's the rawproject.org/conference. And then if you want to support Matt and Rosie, particularly looking for churches that will associate with that, you can find out more information at therawproject.org/residencies. I'll stop the recording